All right, welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. We are going through the 70 plus platform points in Andrew Yang's website, getting to know him and his politics a little bit better. What's up next, Cody?
Well, let's see. Next up, this is something you're going to be hearing from a lot of Democrats. You have been hearing from a lot of Democrats for a few years now, and it's one of the things I'm really interested in. We've been going over a couple of his platforms, and one thing we've noticed going through them is that it's kind of hard to nail the guy down. He wants to increase ICE funding and his border policy, but then some other stuff is kind of, general Democrat stuff. So anyway, today what I thought we can go through is, here is Andrew Yang on Medicare for All. Right now, he's identifying two issues. He's saying that access to medicine isn't guaranteed to all citizens, and the incentives for healthcare providers don't align with providing quality, efficient care.
Okay.
As president, I will work with Congress to create a Medicare for All program or a similar program to provide healthcare to all Americans, shift the way doctors are compensated to promote holistic and empathetic care, and create incentives for and invest in innovative treatment methods and methodologies.
Okay. So, first off, I completely agree with the idea of trying to shift the culture of medicine towards holistic and empathetic care. Yes, totally agree with that. My question is, how is the president going to do that? You can't just executive order that.
Well, what was also, I get this not so much on holistic, but wasn't Obamacare some kind of Medicare for All program that the Congress came up with not too long ago?
Well, yeah, basically, most of the people that signed up for Obamacare weren't actually getting better insurance. They were just getting enrolled in Medicare or a Medi-Cal or in already existing state programs. But I really like the idea of attacking access. I like his use of the word access. And this is why sometimes I really feel like Andrew Yang is a closet Republican. You know what I'm saying?
He's a self-described capitalist.
Because there's no way you could run in 2020 against Donald Trump. And so you'd have to go on the Democrat ticket because the UBI, the Universal Basic Income, I don't like using that terminology. I really like his terminology.
He calls it the Freedom Dividend.
Yeah, the Freedom Dividend a lot better. And that's basically copying the Alaskan Republican governor's idea of cutting out the bureaucracy of government and just giving the dividend of the oil money straight back to the people, similar to how the state of Utah got rid of the bureaucracy in their homeless department and just gave the money straight to the homeless and did a lot for the homeless in the state of Utah. So I like his terminology of saying access to healthcare. I think all of us believe there needs to be equal access to education. Not everybody should get an A. You should be graded upon your performance in the classroom, but everybody should at least have the opportunity to show up to class. I think that's a wholeheartedly American value. But I'm curious what his platform suggests when he uses the word access. I love that he's going here. First off and foremost, I love that he's going here and using terms like holistic and using terms like compensation structures for doctors. But to me, there needs to be a lot of deregulation in many aspects of the medical field, especially upon how many doctors were allowed to graduate and how much debt they have to incur to become doctors. So does he continue? What details does he give, Cody?
Well, moving down the line here, a couple of the other, we already went through what he said he will do as president. However, here's an excerpt from his book. And it's fairly large. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but one of the things that kind of stuck out to me was here. In general, the use of technology has not transformed healthcare the way that optimists would hope. Healthcare costs have continued to climb to a record 17.8% of the economy as of 2016, up from 11.4% in 1989 and less than 6% in 1960. We spend about twice of what other industrialized countries do on our healthcare per capita to lesser results. According to a 2014 Commonwealth Fund report, we are last among major industrialized nations in efficiency, equity, and health outcomes attributable to medical care, despite spending much more than anyone else.
Okay, hold on a second. I'm just going to press pause there really fast. This is where I get a little bit of a problem with statistics. I love how Mark Twain said there's lies, there's damn lies, and there's statistics. People all the time, these medical numbers are just like our education numbers. All the time people are criticizing America for, not being first in the nation for education or in the world for education, despite the fact we spend so much money on education. Well, that's because we educate everybody. They're always saying, oh, well, in Japan, they're factoring trinomials by the 7th grade, while here we can barely do X, Y, or Z basic math. Well, that's because in other cultures, like in Japan, if by the time you're 13 years old, you're not excelling in math and science, they actually detrack you and put you into like carpet laying school. They put you into the labor schools where you are no longer participating in academia. So when we test all of our high school seniors against all of their high school seniors, you're testing our general population against their dream team. So of course we're going to be doing worse than they are. In America, there's a similar occurrence with our medical system because we're the #1 research and development nation out there, because there's a profit incentive in our capitalist system to make better medicines, better medical devices, better life-saving protocols. You get compensated for that. So when you pour tons of money into research and development, for example, on better chemotherapy drugs, well, then of course the cost per chemotherapy patient on average across the board is going to rise. So I'm not defending our numbers. I'm just saying that citing our numbers in terms of amount spent per capita is a little misleading because we incentivize research and development here.
I guess. But what I really wanted to get to, though, is moving on, as he said, our job-based health insurance system does the very thing we want to most avoid. It discourages businesses from hiring. For employers, companies subsidize health insurance costs are a major impediment to hiring and growth.
Yeah, but where do those come from? Well, that all came from regulation, where we were getting the crap taxed out of us in the 70s. And all of the companies realized the only way they could compete for employees wouldn't be to give them more money, because they were just going to hit the higher tax brackets. So they started giving them other perks like company cars and paying for the health insurance. If we would deregulate all of these tax laws and just allow us to pay employees more without them getting heavily taxed, then we could actually engage in better market-based insurance strategies that would lower the cost per person.
I mean, I would just say that you could also say that if the federal government provides some base layer of Medicare for all, which I'm not saying I agree with, but if they do, then suddenly the impetus of businesses to need to provide healthcare is not like everyone's got some base level of healthcare. There's no, your healthcare has to come from your employer because you have healthcare. You can't just insist your employer gives it to you. You already have basic healthcare. If you want more, we can work something out, but you have something now. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to just insist that your employer covers your healthcare for you because the government does it.
See, I would actually be very interested in trying some kind of basic amount of healthcare that everybody's entitled to. I mean, being a Christian guy, I believe we're all children of our Heavenly Father, of God. We're all brothers. We're all sisters. We all have this basic humanity that is worth preserving and is worth helping. So the Christian in me is very much on board with anything that could help the most amount of people in society as possible. My only problem with these government Medicare for All and Medi-Cal for All slogans is that they almost never end up being Medicare for All or Medi-Cal for All, but end up being Medicare, or in the case of California where we live, Medi-Cal for people that look like they're going to be Democrat voters. And I have a very specific case when I went to the hospital with my daughter who was diagnosed with cancer, and she was going to get turned away from getting cancer treatments, and we were going to have to go to the county hospital to, fend for what was left over there. We were actually going to get turned away from the specialist hospital, the children's hospital, because I committed the crime of making more than $33,000 a year, which is the cutoff for Medi-Cal, and illegal immigrants get it free. So you're literally put into a position where you get penalized for being a citizen, and you get penalized for being somebody that makes enough money to only really basically pay your rent in California. I mean, rent here is exorbitant. You're going to be paying $2,500 a month just for a one-bedroom apartment, okay? So my frustration with these for all slogans is that they're never for the middle class. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They're never for the middle class. Like they're booked as being for all. They're always for people that look like they're going to vote Democrat soon. I could go into much more detail another day, but that in California, for example, there's a wild incentive to actually not make more money and perform better because you can get so many benefits. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that, as of right now, there doesn't seem to be any, on his website any specific notions of what groups of people. It's just Medicare for all. And like I said, his arguments from his book seems to be, if the federal government's providing some kind of medical care, then that relieves the burden from employers to provide it. It relieves the burden from employees. As you said here, on the worker side, tons of people hang on to jobs they do not want just to be in it for health insurance. Economists refer to this as job lock, and it makes the labor market much less dynamic, which is bad in particular for young workers. And I agree with that, man.
I totally agree in job lock, but also, why do you have the job-based health insurance program? It's because of hyper-regulation in the 70s. So why don't we get rid of that hyper-regulation, which is going to drive the cost down so that people can just afford it? I mean, isn't the ultimate Medicare for all wildly affordable? Like, nobody worries about water in the United States of America outside of heartbreaking cases like Flint, Michigan, and some of the unique perchlorate cases that you get in Los Angeles due to bombs testing that they did in World War II and so on and so forth. But by and large, we provide potable drinking and bathing water to every U.S. household for less than 1 cent per gallon. So you never see political platforms outside of, we need higher quality water and better filtration, but you never see platforms out there saying, oh, we need water for all. Why? Because technology has figured out how to cultivate, disperse, filter, and disseminate clean, fresh drinking water to human populations with it costing so little that everybody can afford it. Why can't we take that attitude towards healthcare? If maybe he wanted to come up with a freedom dividend for medical, I would be like that. To me, it seems like he's going a lot more socialist on the medical front and a lot more capitalist school choice on the economic front. I'd be curious to see if he didn't have an idea for like a freedom dividend for medical healthcare, like a health savings account that had its own freedom dividend money in it. Does that make sense?
It does. And like I said, it's still very much adopting Medicare for all or a single payer system will solve the biggest problems of rampant overbilling and ever. It's pretty democratic, standard base Medicare for all, single payer. We should go into it. He's still advocating for that. I mean, like I said, I appreciate some of the more capitalist kind of leaning criticisms, saying that, it hurts the job market when we have these healthcare stuff tied to jobs. Sure, I get all that, but at the end of the day, it is really tough.
Plus, it disincentivizes what we really need. My daughter had cancer. We need to do massive amounts of cancer research. Right now, the government only gives 4% to pediatric cancer research.
Well, he does specify that that's one of his goals is to allow doctors and hospitals to innovate in treatment, change incentive structures. And
what incentivizes innovation? Nothing incentivizes innovation than money. Yeah. And when you all of a sudden nationalize healthcare, which is what Medicare for All is, when you socialize healthcare, you completely remove the profit incentive, therefore making it come to a screeching halt. Like, do you see major technological medical advancements coming out of France? No, they have Medicare for All. Do you see major technological advances in medical science coming from Norway, from Sweden, from Denmark, from any of these Scandinavian countries that everybody adores on the left? Do you see these major advancements? No. In America, what major advancements have you seen? You've seen, for example, the guy that invented penicillin, not only did he invent it, but he gave away the patent for free. Like, so if that doesn't prove that capitalism with a profit incentive is going to give you better research and development because there's freedom to innovate, and that the education and cultivation of our good Judeo-Christian morals is going to make it so that we give it away for free, like, if the advent of antibiotics as a worldwide phenomenon coming from America doesn't show how innovation and just goodness of people and their Judeo-Christian principles doesn't yield the biggest technological advancements in history, I have no idea what else does. Am I wrong?
Well, I got a question for you. Where was penicillin discovered?
Oh wait, no, sorry, it wasn't penicillin. It was the polio vaccine.
Yeah, because
I'm sorry.
Penicillin was found by a Scottish scientist in the early 20s. I was gonna say, like,
yeah,
I don't know if American capitalism, I don't know what single payer has to do with a 1928 Scottish scientists. But yeah.
Yeah, I apologize. That was actually the polio vaccine.